All right. Hello, everybody, to a very special edition of Finance Junkies. Today is a day in which Tesla has fallen pretty dramatically, as we've all seen. It is also a day in which Enphase after hours fell pretty dramatically, as we all saw, down 15% after hours. There's 121 people here in 22 seconds, which I think is a record. So I think a lot of people want some explanation, some guidance on why Tesla fell, why Enphase fell. We're going to talk about all that today, maybe even go a little bit longer than our usual hour here today. So make sure you get a drink, make sure you get some food, some coffee, some alcohol. You know, if you like to light up a little bit, whatever's your thing, sit back and relax because I've got some special guests with me today. And these special guests have been basically saying that you got to think of Tesla a little differently than what the Uber bulls think of Tesla as. I am a bull on Tesla. I don't own the stock because I missed out on buying it pretty cheap and I didn't like buying it at 270. But these two have been pretty consistent for the past couple of years in their sophisticated analysis, more sophisticated than me, around some of the problems with Tesla. And if you're a Tesla shareholder that's super emotional about the stock, I would not watch this video because these two guys are going to leave no mercy today. It's not like they want to dance on the grave of Tesla shareholders for today. It's not that you're dead, but for today. But sometimes you got to dance on the grave a little bit and kind of explain what's wrong with the thesis. And so we're going to hear a contrarian bear case for today. Carlos will be here in a little bit, and he'll probably eat these guys out a little bit in terms of getting them back. But I have Mr. Dividend Streams, Steven, with me today. He has published many articles around Tesla. You can go to his Seeking Alpha history. He's going to help break down some of the problems with this company. And we've got Finance Junkie first original member on YouTube, Matt Money, with us today.
What's going on? The lead-in probably made people think that you had Elon on in the background just chilling with his feet up and it's $200 billion.
Yeah, you know, Elon would be interesting to have on the show. I think he would not like this show today because we're going to have some things to say.
And I think that you really are already off on a bad foot because I feel like people were probably expecting somebody like Elon, and it's just me and Steven.
Well, you guys have very valuable perspectives. Steven broke his streak of not texting or calling me. He called me today, finally, and he had to educate me about some things. And after that education, after 10 minutes, he was like, so, how about Tesla? And I was like, Steve, are you having an orgasm right now? And he said, yes, I am. And he, you know what, Steve, don't deny it. You said we're having one because this guy has been
denying anything.
Why would you ever call this guy? He doesn't let anything go under.
He's denying anything. Look, I'm going to rephrase what you said in the opening. I'm a Tesla shareholder by proxy. I own I own digital shares.
Okay, before I let you get into your rant, because I know you have a lot of rant, I'll give you the whole floor to talk. So Steve also is going to talk a lot today about what's going on with Tesla. And then we've got our good friend, Finance Junkie KRIS, who's also going to be talking about Tesla. KRIS infamously said a couple weeks ago when Tesla was at 280, a couple months ago, that, look, I think 150 is the real bottom. Maybe we get there, maybe we don't. But all three of these gentlemen will help give us a perspective on Tesla. And I thought this guy wasn't going to join, so we would have the full stage to the Bears today. But he ended up joining. And he's not going to let the bull case die. Carlos
the bulldog.
That literally got me up. Full disclosure, I was gonna have sexy time with my wife, and I was like, no, I'm getting on. I'm gonna fuck these guys instead.
Hold on. See, this is the problem with the Elon people. You skipped sex with your wife.
He's gonna use this as motivation.
I got some tension here. I got a little something I need to get out. You know what I'm saying?
This is going to be a good episode. 244 people, you are here. This is going to be a banger. We got a lot to do.
Oh, that was your best joke ever. That was your best joke yet. This is going to be a banger. You see, when you don't try, you're actually funny.
Oh, you're right.
That was great.
Okay, now here are some rules for this episode, all right? I need you guys to let me moderate. I am not going to try to poke you guys too much. I want you guys to discuss. I already know there's going to be some internal fighting here, but I want it to be respectful. You know, obviously, I know all you guys are not going to get personal, hostile, or all that. It's going to be around data. But look, this is going to be a passionate discussion, and it should be a passionate discussion because the stock is fucking tanked today. A lot of people lost a lot of money today, and people want explanations. People want to know, should they buy the dip? People want to know should they sell? We have a friend of the channel, Vince is bullish. Shout out to him. Sold his entire Tesla position. He is a retail investor. He's been making Tesla videos for a long time. Today, he said, you know what? I'm out. And so this was an emotional day for a lot of people. And I think we've got a lot to discuss.
Oh, what was his, when did he buy in? How long was he holding?
He had an average below 221, but I think he's been holding for almost a year now, a year and a half.
Okay, but he's still a pretty recent.
Yeah, I think he could be longer than that. I'm not fully sure, but sure. It was a tough day for a lot of people. So let's organize the discussion. Let's start with this. Tesla fell pretty dramatically. Let's start off with you, Steve. Why do you think the stock tanked that much? And did you kind of see it coming? And we'll start the discussion there. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. So for 10 seconds, I'm a Tesla shareholder. When Tesla goes down, it's not good for the S&P. So even if you don't own Tesla directly, you indirectly own it through all the major total market funds and S&P funds. Nobody likes to see anybody lose money. And I am negatively impacted by Tesla going down. So should not buy or sell based on what I'm about to say. But
wait, you are negatively affected?
Everybody on this podcast is negatively affected if Tesla
even
goes
me.
down.
Oh, you're saying just because of the S&P. Okay, but that's the same for Apple and Meta and
yeah, but I own Tesla directly also.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So it's no secret that I was bearish on Tesla and then I went neutral for a while, but I'm back to being bearish. And
hard line bearish. You are bearish on Tesla.
For the time being, Tesla's an amazing company.
At the current price.
Yeah, at the current valuation. Tesla's an amazing company. Nobody else could have.
Real quick, meaning after the $30 drop today, you are still bearish at the current.
Yeah, I think it's going lower.
Okay, go ahead.
But make no mistake, I think that ultimately in the long run, this company will be higher valuation-wise than it is today on a market cap. It's just in the midterm, I think prices are going to go down. And I'll say this. If my wife decides to sell Tesla without me knowing, I certainly wouldn't be buying it back in a different account. I listened to the earnings call. So after I read the transcript 3 times, because I wanted to actually hear how unhinged he was. And there were things that he said on the earnings call that I was shocked that he said. And I think about how I felt when Karp banged the table as a shareholder of Palantir, and everybody knows how pissed off I was about that conference call. I mean, that was not a good conference call for Elon or for Tesla by any means. I mean, the rant about Cybertruck should not have been said. His communications people should have stopped him. And his rant about work from home, even though it was very short, not a good look. Tesla has a growth problem at the moment. And there are 2 businesses that the bulls are banking on that are not businesses yet. And it's an auto company. It's not a tech company. I mean, there's some serious issues with the numbers. I put some charts together, so we can either go to those or let everybody.
Since we got a lot of people, let me go to Matt. We'll eventually get to those charts. Matt, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes max. Give your bear case on today, then Chris, and then I'll let Carlos kind of go at it, and then we'll start the debate. Go ahead.
And so I want to reiterate what Steve said, right? I think he's very right in this. I'll say something that might gather some headlines for us. I think that Tesla is kind of the Cisco of our time. I think that it rose very quickly and it was overvalued. And I think it's eventually going to get to a point where the valuation that it's currently at of $600-700 billion is worthwhile. But exactly reiterating what kind of Steve said, the company is great. And I want to highlight that it's not going to zero. It has a lot of good potential, but it is an auto company. And what I will say is 50,000 foot view, not looking at the stock price, just because I'm a guy that is primarily oil and gas focused and everything the like, doesn't mean I hate Tesla. I think they've done a phenomenal job. If anybody were to have done what was done, it would have been Elon, and he's done a phenomenal job and has changed the auto industry forever. However, that doesn't mean you can value an auto company at $700 billion. And at the moment, that's what it is. Now, do I think that the price is going to go lower? I think the company with its potential should be worth $350 to $400 billion, which would put it at about $125-ish per share. So about half the price it is today, because it's trading at about, I think, 680 or 650 billion market cap.
So you think the fair value is $125 a share
today?
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying, and this is why I say it's the Cisco of our time, it has reached a peak where people are realizing, okay, maybe we overdid it on the valuation. And I'm not discounting the potential for future robo-taxi growth and robots and stuff of the like, but exactly what Steve said, there will be a point in which those things come to fruition. But I think that they're so far away and they're not tangible as of yet that they should be valued at a $700 billion market cap. So I think that the company's great. I think if you're holding this for 10 to 15 years, this is a blip in the road. If you're a short-term trader, this is something where you're kind of looking. And what I heard Steve say, I don't want people to take Steve out of context because this is what I heard. I heard today the price is expensive, but he thinks in the long term, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, it's an opportunity that is unlike any other. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth there, Steve, but what he's saying is today he would stay kind of clear until things kind of firm up, whether that's economic interest rates get better, whether the robotics piece or the energy parts of the business actually start to gain a lot of traction. But at the moment, I just don't see the reason why it's worth $600-700 billion. And at one point was worth $1 trillion. So I'm with Steve on that kind of bear sentiment. Do I think it's a great company in the long term? I think that there's opportunity there. I just think it's overpriced for the valuations at the moment. I would steer clear, just like I noted with Enphase. You know, it's a tough environment right now. And I think that if you're looking short term, it's tough.
All right.
Also it was something that was obviously coming with the margin shrinking, the continuous cuts to price and sales. That's not something that happened once. That's something that's happened throughout 2022, 2023. And so for people to say operating margins, oh my God, you know, it's like they went from $2.5 billion in revenue, net income to 1.8 or 1.9. Like that's to be expected when you cut prices that much, right?
No, agreed. Again, I'm going to give Chris the stage and then Carlos, you're going to have at it. Chris, I want you to, if you can, carry on from what Matt said around this idea around you should have seen it coming. You are one of the people that obviously has been bearish short term, just 150 is your price target. Do you agree with Matt that it was obvious given the price cuts, margins, higher interest rates that it was coming? And what are your thoughts currently on the price action today?
Just share my screen.
Real quick, Chris, you're on the wrong mic. You got to connect to your other one. Thank you, everybody, for being here. 374 people. Thank you for being here today. We're going to be discussing Tesla and Enphase, and this might be a longer episode than an hour today.
Give me 1 second.
Shout out to Blake. Carlos is holding off until the SmackDown. About to be WWE in here. We got Warren Puffett in here. Not, but do you think that justifies such a big price drop? We'll talk about more valuation stuff. Again, Steve and Matt both believe 120 is the fair price. Chris thinks around 150. We'll have Carlos in a second. Go ahead, Chris.
I didn't.
Okay. So one of the things that we have to realize is, regardless of how the company performs, okay, whether it be Tesla, Enphase, Joe Schmo's Widget Shack, regardless of how good they operate, at the end of the day, it's all about the consumer because they are a consumer product, and especially because they are a large purchases that typically have to be made by the consumer. So as the consumer weakens because of, reductions in the availability of credit, it's obvious that now the sales of that particular product are going to go down, regardless whether the company is operating at a high level, low level, whatever. People right now are not exactly rushing out the door to buy solar panels and saying, oh, you know what? I need to get solar on my roof and pay $500 a month in interest to save $100 on electricity bills. Like, no one is doing that. So obviously right now with the higher interest rates, it's going to negatively impact companies like Enphase. It's also going to do the same thing for car companies like Tesla, because people are going to say, hey, wait a second, why am I going to go out there right now and pay 10-12% car note just to get an electric car? And basically whatever savings I was going to get by switching to an EV are going to go out the door via higher interest payments on that car. If anything, I'll drive my gas car for a longer period of time until rates come down to a more manageable level. So I'm not saying that demand is completely dead, but the expectation that you can keep the demand growing the same way without cutting down prices and cutting down margins are a little rough. Can't really do that. And especially if you look at on a year over year comp, it makes it even worse. So just, you know, a lot of the stuff here, it wasn't something
Chris,
that like
it wasn't something that it was hard to see, because your argument is if interest rates are high, it's hard to pay $900 a month for a Tesla. Therefore, there's inevitably going to be some demand destruction there.
Exactly. And in order to mitigate that demand destruction, Elon had to do what he had to do, which is lower the prices. Now, here's the thing. Elon could have just said, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to keep the margins high. If you want to buy a Tesla at $60,000. Otherwise, go fuck yourself. But you know what would have happened? Sales would have declined, right? Sales would have declined by a lot. And then people would have been like, oh my God, Tesla's sales are going down. And the same exact result would have happened. So this is a catch-22 where it's like, okay, how are you going to, you know, are you going to sacrifice margins and increase sales volume, or are you going to go the opposite route? And you're just going to say, you know what, I'm going to cut down on some of my margins, but I'm going to get cars out the door. I think they made a right move by getting more cars out the door, because remember, this is a play on the ecosystem. You want as many Teslas on the road as possible, because there is an avenue for future growth in selling services and selling charging and selling all this other stuff that's going to be able to generate a ton of revenue in the future. The last thing you want to do right now is give up market share. Right now, you should be trying to expand out market share as much as possible. So all these idiots on Twitter, like right now, crying and complaining, oh, look, the margins are down, like Gary Black and blah, blah. What did you want Elon to do? You want him to just say, you know what, fuck it, I want to keep my margins high. I'm not going to sell as many cars and then sacrifice the future? Bunch of retards. This is why they're not the CEO of a major car company. All they can do is sit on the sidelines and speculate. I did not listen to the Elon call at all yet. I don't particularly care. Sometimes like people give too much credence to how the CEO sounds on a conference call versus what are they doing fundamentally on the ground to make the businesses work or not work. If you speak to anyone about Steve Jobs, everyone have told you he's an asshole. Even during one of the conference calls, he must have called out like a reporter saying that's a stupid question and everything else. So I think the people that utilize that as a measure of future success is probably not the way to go. I go based on raw fundamentals and macro. So that's it.
Okay. So Carlos, I'm gonna let you go in a second. Give me 2 seconds. 2 seconds. You know, we got me thinking about
that. Just I put that in your brain, dude. I just put that all in your brain.
Okay. So
I'm actually looking for one particular chart.
Yeah, take your time. Let me summarize it, and then we'll have you here for one thing. So to summarize what these three gentlemen said, they think Elon made the right decision with cutting prices to get volume, and even though margins will suffer. However, all three of these guys do not think the valuation is supportable right now. So Carlos, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to give you the whole floor, and I don't want anyone interrupt in these 10 minutes. Okay. No one after those 10 minutes, then we'll start the back.
Can I say something before he goes though?
Yeah. Let me just finish this and then I'm going to have you go. In these 10 minutes, Carlos, I need you to respond to that valuation question, because no one's going to agree that they shouldn't have cut the prices or the margins. Like all three of these guys, I think obviously agreed like that was the right move to make, but their argument is 120, 150, 190, maybe that's a fair valuation, not this. So I guess the question becomes, do you think this is a fair valuation? And do you think there really is FSD or the bot or the Jonas Brother Band thesis on Dojo beating NVIDIA? Do you think that justifies buying this dip? Or do you think their thesis around 120, 150 is more correct? Matt, go ahead, and then Carlos, you can start.
So two things. I want to be quick. I've always thought the people that thought the 30% margins forever, 20% margins forever were always kind of off their rocker. And this just goes to show that this was kind of planned for the long term, that people that were planning on 20, 30% margins and revenue going up to $700 billion a year and all that stuff at 20, 30% margins, and the stock being able to be 5 trillion by 2025 are just off their rocker. Second, Steve, I want to hear what your price target is, because you didn't say specifically.
Steve, your price target, and then Cars.
Let Carlos go. We can get into that later.
Okay, well, when we were on the phone, it was definitely below $200. So it's not high right now, right? You would not advise buying the dip. Let's say that. All right, Carlos. Carlos, the floor is yours.
1 second. I'm really trying to prepare this here. 1 second. I got a couple.
Okay, so then Steve,
one more little chart. Yeah.
That?
What would be your fair valuation? Because that's the difference. Price targets. Price targets have been, I don't know. People misuse that term. I think I'm
stumped.
Huh?
I am stumped. Normally, I can come in and say what I really believe my fair market valuation is and where I would pull the trigger. The free cash flow dipped so much
Do it really? Hold on, let me check.
Cash from operations dipped so much that I can't tell if this is an anomaly quarter or not. I'm having a hard time. The macro is playing a lot into it. And a bigger thing is I think people need to take a step back and really think about the macroeconomic economy and the underlying economics for households, because the median household income in the United States is $74,580 in 2022. When you look at all taxes, now I put a zip code from Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania is kind of a middle of the road state for taxes.
Yeah.
When
And it flips
put that in-
Republican Democrat too.
So yeah, it's on the border, so it's a good one to use for a litmus test. When you put that into a salary calculator, your semi-monthly take home is $2,381. So call it $4,700 a month take home. I don't care if it's a Tesla, I don't care if it's a Honda. After your housing costs, food, and everything else, it is very difficult to go buy a brand new car for the median household. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration also. And I'm just having a very hard time coming up with a finite number where I would pull the trigger, because when you look at rates, and I have everything up that I'm going to bring up later after Carlos goes, it is not looking like an attractive environment unless you're buying a car outright to buy a new car or even a used car at this point if you have to finance. So I'm having a hard time coming up with a number.
All right, so can you take the condom off and tell us what's your price target, please?
I don't have one.
It's definitely not 220. I know
It's under 200.
it's under 200. and
Probably
it's-
under
125.
170.
Mine is 125.
Wait, you went from 150 to
125.
125 now, Chris?
Yeah. The margins are down. What do you want? My price targets will adjust based on the business performance.
And
If you're
before
telling me
Carlos
that,
get-
yeah.
Hold
yeah,
on.
go ahead,
Before
sorry.
Carlos gets into it, would you be shocked if I told you that Tesla, based on the trailing 12, and Volkswagen has not reported yet? So I'm going from Q2 back 12 months, generated an additional $3 billion in profit than Tesla. Would you be shocked at that?
No.
And Tesla's valued at 630 billion more, and the numbers don't work.
And again, your main reason, and you've been consistent about this for a long time, the reason the numbers don't work is because you don't factor FSD, the bot, Dojo, any of that. You truly see them as a car company.
They're not real companies right now.
And I think, yeah, that'll be a discussion.
I mean, once FSD is perfected, you still have government hurdles. I'm not going to be able to sit in the back of a Tesla in New York City and drive around. I'm going to have to sit in a driver's side. It's not a real business until the government sanctions it. Same thing with Robo taxi. That's not a real business till the government sanctions it. We can't even get a Speaker of the House. You think that they're going to decide anything on this?
Okay,
Anytime
so you
soon?
no. See, you manipulated me because you used that joke on me at 1 p.m.
It's
when
not
you
a
called
joke.
me. And no, and I was laughing, and you thought it was a good enough joke to do in front of 454 people. So you used me to make that joke.
Why
It
doesn't
was a
Steve
great
call me?
joke. What
This is
am
the
I
real
saying?
question. I'm
I
hurt.
was dying on the phone, and you started laughing with me. All right,
Anyway,
we
Carlos,
talked enough.
go ahead.
Carlos, you skipped sexy time for a gangbang. So
Yeah.
go ahead. This
No,
is-
oh,
go ahead.
see, your jokes are better.
This is
Your
a
jokes are
little
getting better. This is good. All right, there's just so much to unpack, and I'm trying to take in what you guys are saying, and also to address particular issues that people had with the earnings call. And I just want to address some points here that you guys made. Okay, so Matt, one of the first things that you said is that Tesla has changed the auto industry. The auto industry is not the auto industry today is in a massive transitory period. So it's very difficult to value any of these companies because where we are right now is not indicative of what it's going to settle at in a few years. Whether it's 2030 or 2035, all vehicles will become electric at a certain point. So the question is not who's doing well today or in 6 months or in a year. It's like who is best set up to take the lion's share of where the industry is going in the next few years. That's one of the reasons NVIDIA's valuation so high. They are set to be the leader in AI. We're not there yet, right? But we know that that's where the industry is going. And people are giving NVIDIA a ridiculous valuation because they go, hey, man, that's the company that is setting not only themselves up, but the entire industry up to be the leader in that space. That's exactly where Tesla is today. That's why it's so difficult, even for someone like Steve, to be able to come up with a correct valuation today. And who else has said it? It's a tough environment. right now. I think that's what KRIS said, something about this. In tough environment right now for Enphase. The environment that we're in right now is not conducive to any of these companies doing well. Like Steve was saying, nobody has any money. I mean, this is what I was saying yesterday. Nobody has any money. So you're trying to sell people the second most expensive thing that they'll buy in their lifetime in an environment like this. The first would be a house, and the second thing would be a car. So it's difficult for any company to operate in this environment. I do want to share this screen.
Carlos, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. See, people have money. Right now, everyone's got a job. People have money. The problem is the credit is the thing that's lacking. That's the issue. Right now, with the Fed raising rates as high as they are, banks are not exactly willing to lend a lot of money out there. So even the people that are getting loans, they're going to extract a shit ton of interest from you in order to qualify for that loan to get it. Most people right now, they are still making relatively the same amount with a little bit of a bump since 2021. So right now, affordability on the credit side is the problem. Not necessarily that people don't have money. People are still spending money on shit. They're just not spending money on the high dollar items.
That word affordability is what Elon has been saying forever, that the barrier to EV adoption is not that the vehicles aren't good enough. They're good enough now. The tech is good. It's the affordability of the vehicles. This is the chart that I was looking for. If you can share my screen, it's this one here. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
I think we've talked about this. This is the share of the US auto market that is available to you at different price points. Okay. Tesla predominantly has been operating up in here. Can you guys see my cursor? Have been operating up here in the 60 to 80,000 and not being able to get into even a 20% market share. Elon's target is here. This is where he wants to operate, right in here, in the $20,000 to $40,000 range. So every $1,000 or $5,000 that you drop the vehicle, you open yourselves up to an exponentially larger portion of the EV market. And this is where Elon wants to get. This is why cutting costs is the number one thing that they try to do at Tesla.
So, Carlos, let me ask this question because I think it'll really frame the discussion really well. It seems like you agree that cutting costs is the right move. So here's the question that I think will
cutting prices is cutting prices was always the goal, and cutting prices was always the goal. But how do you get there? You either how traditional auto companies operate is they'll even sell you their gas vehicles at a very low margin. So even Ford on their like F-150s, they're not making a lot of money on the F-150s. Where they're making money is in the service. That's where they get the 40% margins. Correct. But because EVs are just fundamentally, they're just a simpler design, there's much less maintenance on them. You have to make that money. You have to make that margin on the initial sale. Otherwise, you're not going to have access to that because there's very little maintenance on them.
Right. So now here's the question. At a $700 billion market cap, the bulls say cut the price, get the volume. FSD is the future, or something else is the future, not really the 17, 19% gross margin, which is 3 times better than industry average. So here's the question. At 700 billion, why the hell should anyone buy this stock if interest rates are going to stay high? Prices are probably going to be cut more because demand's going to get destroyed even more if we're in a tough macro environment. And 95% of the revenue is not energy, is not the bot, is not taxis, is the car. Why is this price cheap? Why should we factor in any of those things in today's multiple?
Well, it's the first thing that I said. You have to look. Okay, Matt even said this. Who said this? Matt said this. Steve said this. If you're a long-term holder, these prices are cheap. If you're a long-term shareholder of Tesla, then looking at these prices, say with a 5-year or a 10-year horizon, these prices are cheap compared to where the company's going to be. You don't want to be FOMOing in at the top. I don't want to wait till the news happens, till a breakout quarter, or I don't want to.
No, but real quick, these guys say this is not cheap. They say 120 is cheap. So I'm asking you to defend why is this actually cheap?
I don't even think 120 is cheap. I think 120 is an appropriate value.
Pick 120. And look, and they're entitled to that, but they're not, in my opinion, they're not seeing a lot of what Tesla's trying to do in the future. Those future addressable markets are not something like are things that advance in plateaus, right? So you put a lot of work into something and then suddenly you have a breakthrough. They're not incremental. So one day either FSD is solved or it's not, right? That's how it works. By the time you FOMO in after it's solved, it's too late. So you've got to be in early. A lot of these things require almost like a call option mentality. And that's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it that the prices that we're getting today are call options on these future TAMs, which are massive, like the bot, like
So I think
like
we all
and
agree
like
the future
FSD.
TAMs are massive, but
Yeah.
they're
And no other and no
very
and
far
no
in the future,
and
right? The robots.
no, that's the thing. Very far in the future. That's the difference. Maybe people
Okay.
think that some of these things are 5-10 years out, but I don't think so, because I've seen how these things work. You see, it seems like they're dumping a lot of money and nothing's happening, and then one day it's just solved. And by the time you FOMO in after that's done, it's over. So you've got to be in early enough. And if you see what's happening, no other car company is doing anything close to what Tesla's doing. Yeah, Volkswagen's trying to make cars, and that's essentially what they're doing. They're trying to make cars, or they're partnering with other companies to try to help them get autonomous driving software. None of them have an energy play. None of them have solar companies. None of them are trying to deal with do mega packs. None of them have an AI division. None of them are doing this. So Tesla is spending a ton of capital trying to build those things up at the same time. They're not operating like just a car company. This is why I don't understand why they try to be valued as a car company, because they're not trying to operate like one. That's the part that most people see. But they're also doing things like Investor Day or AI Day. They are telling you where they are going. And Tesla, or even Elon Musk in particular, he is known for telling you what he's going to do, and he could be 5 years out, 10 years out, but for the most part, he has done everything that he said he's going to do. He's like, we're going to land rockets, and he's landed rockets. And that's another part of this too. He has access to. Think about him
last 2 minutes, Carlos. Then I'll let Steve go. Go ahead.
As the CEO.
No, let Carlos finish. Then I'll share his screen.
It goes into what he's saying.
All right.
Okay.
As the CEO of Tesla, he also has access to the other businesses. For example, SpaceX. He has access to SpaceX engineers and technology that's developed at SpaceX that can help him in Tesla cars. Like the engineers at Tesla, the interior designers at Tesla helped design the Dragon capsule, the capsule for SpaceX. So he's able to move talent and people around and bring people from other industries and other companies into his company in a way that other companies can't. This is why it is so difficult for people to evaluate Tesla, because Tesla itself is really an ETF unto itself. But the only part that we're seeing is the car part. The ones that get Tesla see it as a whole, and the other ones, the people that don't, or people that think it's worth $100, are because they're looking at just how many cars are you making, what's the profit that you're making on those cars.
And let's have Steve respond to that, because I think Steve's response is directly going to be around this ETF argument. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, no, Tesla is a baby ETF. I don't think anybody can argue it's not. It has different divisions. But, when you say that a lot of people are valuing it as a car company, it's because it is a car company. 84% of their revenue is auto, and 87.8% of their gross profit is
So
auto.
would you say Apple's a phone company?
Predominantly a phone company.
So that's what you see how, but
it's a hardware company, but phones make up 47% of their revenue.
Most of Apple's money comes from the iPhone. So by your definition, Apple would be a phone company, not a hardware company, because you're not saying Tesla is a hardware company.
Less than 50% of their revenue is from the phone. When you think about phone, computer, speakers, headsets, computers, tablets, they're a hardware company, and their services business is about to approach $100 billion in annualized revenue, probably in a year or two. But Tesla is an auto company. More than 2/3 of their revenue comes from auto. Like, these aren't just bullshit numbers that I pulled out of the air. This is from their Q3 report.
The thing is, I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is that you are not seeing you're not seeing their trajectory and understanding. When you talk about a price target, say a price target should be where the company should be valued 12 to 18 months from now. A lot of people use price targets as like, it's more like the way that the weatherman tells you the 5-day forecast. It's incredibly short-sighted. And so you're saying, okay, they're making two-thirds of their revenue is from auto right now. Look at the energy margins. Look how the energy division is growing. And that's the part that they are actually making money on.
The energy margins are not good. What are you talking about?
Look at the growth. Look at the growth and deployment in their energy division. Again, when you ask yourself, where are we going to be in 5 or 10 years? Is there going to be less adoption or more adoption? And if you think it's more adoption, who is going to be the leader in that? Who is best positioned? Who is the NVIDIA of that space? It's not any of these other car companies. All these other car companies are carrying a ton of debt, legacy baggage, legacy baggage in terms of their factories and manufacturing, legacy baggage in their thinking, and they also don't have any of these other plays going on. They're also losing money on the vehicles. They're losing money on the vehicles that they're selling, trying to replace the current vehicles that they're selling at profit. And every sale that they sell of these EVs is an ICE vehicle that they lost. The ICE vehicle adoption is collapsing, and that's where their bread and butter is. The EVs that they're selling, they're losing money on them. When
Let's get Matt into here.
What happens in 2 to 3 years when these companies start to go bankrupt?
Matt, you can answer that question. What happens to the fact that ICE vehicles are going down the drain? Go ahead.
Well, I don't necessarily think that. I mean, this is from slide 18 of the Tesla earnings report. So it kind of alludes back to what Chris was talking about, where you're kind of seeing a flatlining of the entirety of the industry on the right-hand side with respect to operating margin. You're also seeing growth of revenue kind of coming back for some of these other car companies on the left. So people are still buying. It's just that they're buying less Teslas and the margins are going down. Not to say they're not saying they're not buying Teslas at all, right? But they're buying them at a slower pace.
How I interpret that is that's an affordability thing. If I only have $25,000 and there's no Tesla in that price point, and then I want to buy a used vehicle, I'm going to get a Corolla.
But then how can you say, Carlos, that ICE vehicles are dying? Because if I only have 25K, ICE vehicles are not dying. I'm going to go buy a Corolla.
This is exactly why Tesla is driving the prices down, and this is why they are doing everything.
But there's no $25,000 vehicle that Tesla has.
Okay, but
they can't. They're not at that price point. The thing is, they're not at that price point yet. But again, they're now in the 40. Huh?
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
3 is actually, I was shocked, and I'm going to give Tesla a lot of credit. I'm going to give Carlos a lot of credit, and Elon Musk a ton of fucking credit. He's winning, and he's done what he said he's going to do, and he's doing
a phenomenal job. Phenomenal
job. I did not realize the Model 3 starting price rear-wheel drive $28,490 on their website right now. It's sub 30,000. I didn't think I'd see it, but that's still in this environment too expensive for most people.
No, no. Well, okay. Once again, I'm going to bring up this screen here. Let's look at this again. At $29,000, right? You're now looking at, they have access to greater than 50% of the auto market. If this chart is correct, right?
But that chart was from 2022 when interest rates on loans were vastly different than they are
That's what I'm saying. So there
21
is
this chart is irrelevant.
There's going to be some difference because people have interest rates do have an effect on the affordability on the consumer side. But it's still that same thing affects all of the car companies. If you only have $20,000, because that's what it is, you only have $20,000. Period. It's not like it disproportionately affects Tesla more than others. But understand that Tesla's the only one with the margins available on their vehicles that they actually do have some pricing power. If you look at this, for example, can you guys see this? This is the profit margins. So this was Tesla's recent price cuts are an attempt to defend its market share from competitors, many of which are struggling with profitability. On average, Tesla's making about $9,000 per vehicle. The average price, I think they said on the earnings call, the average price to build a Tesla has come down to what
date is this graphic from? Because they've cut prices very.
Yes, they've cut prices, but this is Q3 of 2022, so about a year ago, right? Yeah, about a year.
So that margin is no longer 9,000.
It's not 9,000, but it's not 9,000. But what I'm saying is it's come down for all of them. But you look,
but the difference, Carlos, is that the valuation of Ford, GM, and Chrysler are not in the $700 billion range. That's right. The issue. The valuation is the issue that we're having. No one is saying that, hey, the Tesla is not good and their margins aren't good. But the problem is that valuation that they're getting a huge valuation.
But I'm sorry, Chris, even at a 30% margin, that you could say the same thing. At 30, people were saying that at a 30% margin.
They're nowhere near 30%.
But I'm saying,
no longer, yeah.
What are we talking about? They were like the 25. They were upwards of 25 to 30% margins. What?
These are the numbers from each quarter for the past 5 quarters. Their gross profit margin has gone from 25% to 17.89%.
Okay, then my point is that even at 25%, people were saying the same thing. There is no amount of profit margin that Tesla could have. A 90% profit margin, maybe people would say it's worth $700 billion. The point is, if you're just looking at the auto sales and that's all you're focused on, then you're always going to have a problem with the valuation.
Okay, so Carlos, that begs the question. Let's transition the conversation here. Let's really get into it. FSD, because that is the big bull case outside of robots and Dojo. First, yes or no from three guys, then we'll ask Carlos. Dividend stream. Steve, by 2030, do we have a working FSD, at least in the United States? Yes or no?
I mean, I would love to think so.
Okay, so that's a no. Matt, do you think there's a working FSD?
No, that's a lot of time. It's a loaded question.
No, so I'm saying in the next 7 years, do you think we get FSD?
So my answer is I'll just be honest, I don't know, but I will say to contribute because I don't have a good answer is my 125 includes evaluation of FSD potential.
Wow.
So I have a good answer for this.
Let me ask Chris first because he'll be quick. Then I'll let you go. Chris,
No,
yes,
I'm going to be very
next
quick.
7 years.
I think Tesla will have it developed where it'll work very well, where you would probably feel safe. I don't know that the U.S. government will be done.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to speculate on regulatory stuff.
You got regulatory issues that are just you can't predict.
That's exactly why I'm saying I don't know, right? I think FSD is great. I've seen it phenomenal, but the problem that I see right now is you have people that are utilizing, say, cruise technology. There's cruises all over Houston at this point. I've seen several of them at this point. I don't see any Teslas, and I think the problem is the regulatory piece, right? Are Tesla going down the right regulatory path, which we've seen from magazines and stuff of the like that they say no because it's utilizing a different technology than most of these other car companies are. And so is that going to allow them to become
let me say this. If you guys are saying you're not sure about the regulatory environment, Chris, I'm sure you agree with them. You're probably not sure in the next 7 years if we'll have real FSD. Is that also the hesitation to give it the $700 billion market cap? Because that's the whole point of volumes versus margins, right? So that we can license FSD. But if you're not sure it's going to happen, or right, you're just uncomfortable with the idea, then where's
maybe this will help something, because I think if you talk in the terms of 120 a share, 125 a share, 190 a share, the thing that I'd rather talk about is in market cap, because my $350 billion market cap includes the potential for FSD in some sort of form or fashion in the next few years.
But by the way, cruise is not FSD, by the way. Cruise is not the same thing as what FSD is doing.
I know, but what I was trying to mention, I'm not debating you on that, Carlos. What I was talking about specifically is it's very difficult to give judgment on a regulatory environment, and it seems like for some reason Cruise is ahead in that respect than FSD is. Not that it's a superior technology or anything like that. I'm not debating that. I think Tesla FSD is a really good product. I haven't used it personally, but from what I've seen, it's phenomenal. It's just why my question is, and this is why it goes back to the regulatory piece, which I'm confused about. I'm not saying it's better or worse for FSD. I'm just confused why something like a Cruise is getting preferential treatment over something like an FSD.
All right, let me get Chris in real quick, Carlos, then I'm going to give you a lot of time to discuss FSD. Chris, how do you kind of feel about FSD right now in terms of valuation?
I just want to take one really big swing at Cathie Wood and her stupid FSD theory, because she's the one that manifested this taxi network, and that's the bull case behind it. And so everyone started to value them like that's just money in the bank. All Tesla has to do is just get to FSD, and then they're going to get a ton of money. So we should all base our investment thesis on this fucking magical idea of a robo taxi that's nowhere
fucking agree,
near
Chris. I agree.
Even there. You know, so Cathie Wood is partly one of the people to blame for this overvaluation in Tesla, and now people have to fucking run with it and say, okay, you know what? The bulls will run with that theory and say, yeah, don't worry, when FSD comes, then everyone's going to put their cars in a taxi network, and that'll be the biggest revenue driver for Tesla. I'm with these guys in saying that whole concept is unproven, and it's going to take a really long time to get to the that point. I think
it did make people rich, though. It did 20x the stock. So.
And to add on to what Chris is saying specifically is, imagine when FSD does come out, how many people are actually going to own cars, right? I think the value of cars themselves, specifically with FSD technology, will increase. And so in that respect, I'm sure the amount of ownership in the world, specifically the United States, will go down. Less and less people will own cars because robo taxis will be so cheap at that point, because it's then a commodity and everyone's going to be able to try to do it. It's going to
why would you even sell them?
Exactly.
Yeah, why would you even sell them to people? You would just create your own autonomous fleet. Be like, listen, these cars are not for sale. I'm just going to have my own Tesla fleet that just goes around and picks people up and drops people off. You know,
go a step further. There's 5 people on this. Each person I want an answer. You own a Tesla today. FSD and Robotaxi are available today. Are you putting your Tesla in a Robo fleet? I am
No.
100% not fucking doing that.
I absolutely would. Kidding me? Hell
I
yeah.
would.
I would do it right now. If that car's just sitting there right now. Are you kidding me? I would definitely tell that car to get out of there and go make me some money.
Okay, so here's a
Like
question.
daddy
Here's a
big
question.
money.
Absolutely, I'd be
question.
pimping. Absolutely, I'd be pimping that thing out. You kidding me?
Here's a question.
I could see all the cameras on my.
I would buy a
in the app.
second one to do it if the economics made sense, or a third, fourth.
What would be the
fifth.
difference?
My
What would
primary
be the-
vehicle, not going in.
Absolutely. I
So
would. Absolutely,
here's
I
the
would.
question: Who's the liable party if that car hits somebody?
Tesla.
Is it? Oh,
Tesla?
Tesla would
if
be liable.
Why do you think
Which
Tesla
may-
has? Why do you think Tesla has the insurance division? That's If you're not going to use your personal insurance if Tesla's driving the car.
Dude, Tesla's about to pay out a shit ton of insurance when they start crashing all over the place, because that's
No.
definitely
It's
going to
actually
happen.
pretty. It's
At least
actually pretty
in the beginning
interesting.
years. In the beginning
That's
years, that's
ridiculous.
going to happen. Like,
It's ridiculous
I-
to think that a company would set themselves up and not have the technology to not.
So it's
no,
crash.
it's not
actually
ridiculous. A
to then
self-driving car is not going to get into one crash.
I have a point about this. So
Yeah.
actually, my friend has a new Chevy truck Denali. Thing's fucking sick, by the way. But it has Super Cruise, right? So if you're about to get in a crash, whether it's because sometimes it can be your fault if you're not necessarily paying attention, it might slow down or it might disengage. The reason why it does disengage is so that they're not liable, because the computer will know if it got in an accident prior to or after it was in Super Cruise, which is obviously the autonomous piece of it as well. So it is saying, hey, you're not paying attention. I'm not going to be liable for this shit. I'm turning it off. Right? And then
What if
the
you
liability's
didn't
gonna be
maintain?
again.
What if you
Well-
didn't maintain the car properly, and that's the reason why the car got into an accident? Would you still send it out to the thing? Because
No, that's
Tesla
your
could
fault.
just say,
That's your fault.
"Hey, listen, you should have made sure that the wheels had proper amount of air in them before you sent it out. Oh, you didn't tighten this lug nut enough. You didn't do this enough. Blah blah blah." They could try to get out. And
As
you would
someone
be
that's
liable.
gone to Tesla service, you'd be surprised the amount of detail that they get from the computer on exactly what's happening in the car. Everything's monitored in the car. And
Okay, so
everything-
Carlos, your FSD bull case. What is the reason FSD is not 20 years away, or a fantasy that Kathy would
the
dream?
robo taxi portion of FSD is a small portion of why they're building FSD. Again, Elon's goals sometimes don't. How do I explain this? His goal is to make driving safe. His goal is to save lives, right? So the idea of FSD is he's not building FSD to make the robotaxi network. The robotaxi network is an offshoot of solving FSD, which the goal there is to make people safe. So the regulatory hurdles that you're talking about getting full self-drive, it's already in place. There's already even things like adaptive cruise control. We already allow for that on the highway. Like legally, you can sell these level 2 autonomous systems, and they have a level 5 system because they know what the threshold for that would be for you to have regulatory clearance. And all you need to do is show the regulators the data. This is why they're collecting so much data from the current fleet, to show how many number of miles driven per accident are there. Once they get to a threshold where they can prove that driving on FSD is safer than a human, or 10 times safer than a human, whatever the threshold is, then they're not going to have a regulatory hurdle. The other thing is, Steve, you're not going to be able to drive in New York right away, but that's not how it's going to roll out. I mean, Elon even said what you do is you get it right in one area, just like Cruise. Right now, they're operating in San Francisco and a few select cities to get the technology right, and you slowly ramp that up into different locations. You don't try to do a full country solution. The United States is huge with completely different topographies and climate. You need to have a vehicle that can work in all of those. So you test it in some areas where you can work out the bugs and slowly expand it. Same thing with Tesla. Tesla will do the same thing. They'll pick some areas like California, most likely, maybe Vegas, right, is another spot, and then maybe Texas. And as you start to perfect it there, you start to roll it out into.
But
other
how
cities.
long,
See what the
Carlos,
process-
to justify the 700 billion today? How long? Because Elon's been promising it for 10 years now, right?
This is one of those things. Anybody in a creative field, I get this all the time when I work in a creative field. So a lot of times they'll say to me, "Hey, we need this scene done." I'm like, "Okay." But the scene has to be good. So I'm working on the scene and the scene's not working. And someone will say to you, "Man, how long is it going to take for you to fix that scene?" I'm like, "I don't know." The reason I don't know is because the goal here is something subjective. It has to be good. So how do I know? It's not like it's a finite amount of buttons that I can press. We
Right,
have
but
to
Carlos, you are
figure out-
getting
wait,
paid for that job, just like Tesla's getting paid by
I
shareholders.
wanna-
to
I'd
have
like to finish
some-
my point. I've been
Yeah,
really
okay.
patient, so I want to finish my point. So my point is, it's not something. To solve these kinds of things, like a creative problem, is not necessarily like, well, if I just throw 10 hours at it, it's not gonna. Then it'll be done, because who's the person that's at the helm of that, right? So if I'm there, maybe I can get it done in an hour faster. A lot of these issues with FSD are the same thing. And what they found as they were trying to get the cars to drive themselves is that they would hit a plateau. They would get a lot of advancement and hit a certain plateau that then required a breakthrough. And sometimes that required more technology or a rethinking of it or whatever it was to get to the next plateau. The last plateau that they just crossed was they are now doing everything vision end to end. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, dividend streams, Map Money. I don't know if you guys are aware of this now. Whereas before, they were programming lines of code, programming into the vehicles exactly what all the rules of the road were, and the car would follow these rules. And this is what made finding edge cases so important, because you had to find situations where things happened externally that were outside of the norm, and you had to be able to program the vehicle to do that. Now that's not the case. They've switched over. Now it's vision end to end, which now means that the vehicle is driving in very much the same way that humans learn to drive. You drive with a good driver, and they tell you where you're making mistakes, and you learn by watching other people do it correctly, and then you follow suit. This is the technology that was on display with the bot, where the bot was being told what to do or being shown what to do, and then they would repeat it. What Tesla is trying to do is get the vehicle to be autonomous, to actually understand, to be able to drive itself.
Okay, so
Very different. It's very different. So wait. So the point is, what they're trying to do is be able to take a vehicle that you can put anywhere in the world, and it would understand how to drive anywhere in the world. This is very different than what KRIS is doing, where they have high-res HD maps, at very, very high resolution, down to like the inches of exactly the sandbox that it's operating in. And as much as that works, it's basically a trolley system.
Yeah, but Carlos,
Cruise
even
and
as much as
Waymo are basically
you're
digital
describing all this
trolleys.
creativity, but even if it doesn't happen in 5 years, you're not going to feel creative in 5 years. You're going to feel pissed off. So that's why I'm saying, is there any kind of a basis you have for time, or is it just whenever it happens?
Based on what I saw,
when you die,
based on what I saw, and then based on what I saw and the demo that Elon posted on X with the vision, that it was full vision end to end. I think now they have broken through that next plateau, and what you typically see once you have a breakthrough is a lot of improvement in a short period of time. So you see a lot of improvement in a short period of time to whatever the next plateau is. Are we at the last plateau? Are we finally at the last plateau? I would say we're either there or we're really close. So I would say that within a year, this will be a non-conversation. Teslas will be driving themselves in about a year.
Okay,
From
so
this
that's
point,
what I want. A year.
I'm saying from this point, because this was always the goal. This is what was needed to happen for the vehicles to be able to fully drive themselves. Video in, output. That's what they need. That's what they've needed.
Okay, Steve, let's have you go. You have a couple things. Go ahead.
All right. So as far as FSD,
Well, we got 500 people here because of you guys. Thanks.
We got to have you guys on every night.
I'll take credit.
It's all Matt. All Matt. So look, I agree with some of the stuff Carlos said, and I want to be very clear because I'm about to really go at a few things with Tesla. But from a long-term investor standpoint, I do think the company will be more valuable down the road. What that down the road is a different story. FSD, I believe in technology and evolution. So I do think we're going to get full self-driving cars. I don't know when. I don't think it's going to be in the next 3 to 5 years where I can sit in the backseat of a vehicle. Now, from an insurance aspect, this is what I do. It is not going to be pretty, and there's a lot of hiccups that are going to need to get worked out. And I would not bet that Tesla is going to assume 100% of liability, especially with what's going on in the insurance market. Now, from the valuation,
if they're driving the vehicle and you're not in the car, yes, they're going to take full responsibility.
well,
If I put my car in a robotaxi network and I let the vehicle go drive by itself, yes, absolutely, they're going to take liability for the vehicle.
I believe that when I see it. So Mitch, share my screen. Let's go into the valuation. So Carlos had said something about NVIDIA and Tesla, and NVIDIA getting a Tesla valuation. The top block.
No. What I was saying is that NVIDIA, the people buying NVIDIA right now, even at this evaluation, still see growth in the future. Why? Because they
got
understand they understand that basically every business
no.
is going to need some sort of AI component. And who are you going to go to for the technology for that? It's NVIDIA.
These are the updated numbers since all the revisions. NVIDIA has more EPS growth over the next 2 years than Tesla and is trading at a significantly cheaper valuation. Tesla's trading at 69 times 2023 earnings. NVIDIA is trading at 38.8 times.
Okay, but to be fair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but to be fair, what is the average sale price of a unit for NVIDIA, and how do things like interest rates affect NVIDIA? They're very different.
So I can tell you right now, because I'm looking at video cards, not much considering the 480 and 490. And Carlos, you're in graphics and all this stuff. So you know what I'm going to say. A 4090, which is their top of the line.
Right. How much is that card?
16 to 1900 right now.
Okay. 16 to 1900.
You can get a 4060 or 4070 anywhere from 399 to roughly 799. That's
and
not
there's a good secondary market for those, like buying.
And there's a good secondary market, but somebody spending $400 or $500 on a video card is a lot different because they're going to put it on a credit card and then pay it off in a month or two versus a card. It's two completely different things. Now you start talking about the really, really high end that Tesla and these other companies are training their models on. Those cards are 15, 20 grand. It's a separate market when you start talking about data centers. But on the consumer market, vastly different. Now we start looking at.
But I only bring that up because that when you say that they're, that they're selling what their margins are, and I'm saying their average selling price is something that even in a shit rate environment, even when people are broke, someone can find $400 together and throw a GPU into their gaming machine. And also things like interest rates don't affect NVIDIA because you're not taking out a loan to purchase their products by and large.
Yeah, much less. Now from a valuation, just on free cash flow, I had to triple check these numbers because of how much Tesla's free cash flow dropped off. So in Q3 of 2022, they generated 3.3 billion in free cash flow. That is completely dropped off. In the trailing 12, they're at
this is Tesla. This is Tesla.
This is Tesla. 3.7 billion in free cash flow in the past 12 months. They're trading at 185 times free cash flow. And the reason that I said earlier I can't pinpoint an exact number is because when we did the discounted cash flow model last time, it looked really positive because of all their growth. This quarter better be an anomaly because if it's not, it is going to mess up their forward valuation. Why would you pay 690 billion market cap for Tesla when you can pay 800 billion for Meta that's generating 24 billion in free cash flow? 8 times more. Then we did margins. Here's the big things. Their revenue growth right now is plateauing. It's even going down with prices getting cut.
It's actually less than Palantir right now, the revenue growth this quarter.
And you start looking at free cash flow. This is a chart that really scares me because you have prices coming down, you have revenue coming down, cash from operations is nowhere near their highs, CapEx is going up, and their free cash flow has dropped off the mark. Now, their balance sheet's great. They got 24 billion in cash or so. Put in T-bills, they're generating over $1 billion a year in interest income. The problem now is part of the bull case is why wouldn't you own a Tesla? Why would you go with another company? Tesla is never going to be a company that owns 100% or 50% of the market. The competition is coming. Also, not everybody wants an EV.
I mean, really? Did you just say the competition is coming, dude?
Yes.
Where is this? Steve, to be on Carlos's side, what competition is?
Where's the competition? And what?
You don't think the BMW is going to come out with an EV that
Lucid's about to go? Lucid's about to go bankrupt. Rivian's still losing money on every vehicle.
Why are you focusing on those companies?
Yeah, why are you focusing on them?
Then where's the competition? What, the Chinese?
You don't think that Mercedes or BMW or Audi or any of those companies are competition? Seriously?
They are competition, but where are their EV? Where's their EV lineup? What are their margins on those vehicles? If we're talking about automotive margins, where are the margins on those vehicles?
The question is, how are you going to sway somebody from that brand into Tesla?
I went from Mercedes to Tesla. What are you talking about?
My wife just bought an Audi. We didn't buy a Tesla.
I'll
Not
race.
everybody
You want to
wants a
race? You
Tesla.
guys want to race?
My wife will not fucking get anything but a Lexus or a Volvo. Like, dude, I must have
Well,
convinced. Like,
Put her,
we
put
need
her
to
in a
get Tesla.
Tesla.
We need a
Honestly,
And not
Don't-
everybody
don't
wants
test
an
drive a
EV.
Tesla. Go
Well,
I'm
ahead.
excited.
I did put her in a Tesla.
I'm excited for the Chevy Silverado EV, which is coming out, I think, next year.
And I'm gonna get a Honda
We'll
Civic
see. That's gonna get
2035
that's gonna
brown
get
boy. You
pushed
know what I'm
back.
talking
How much you
about?
want to bet that gets pushed back?
I don't know. They got the
gonna get pushed
Hummer
back.
EV out and working. So
It's gonna get pushed back. It's gonna get pushed back.
Dude, for me,
I
it's
just wanna
the
address- I
it's
just want to address Steve's thing about this the free cash flow. It's a lot of what KRIS said before. Okay, Tesla is in a catch-22. If they kept their margins high, they could have sold, right, and kept the margin at 25%, but they would have sold an infinitely less amount of volumes, and then the story would be about where the volumes demand has fallen off a cliff, right? So what does that tell you? That it's in a no-win situation. This is so much more about the fact that affordability is the problem. Whether interest rates are high or the economy is not doing well, people don't have the money to make these sorts of purchases right now. And that's where Tesla operates. They're not selling phones. They're not selling $1,000 phones that you can put on a credit card, or you're getting subsidies from AT&T.
Carlos,
rent it
once
out.
again, people have money, people have jobs, they don't have access to credit. Just let me tell you, that's the issue. Otherwise, I agree with you. Access to credit is the biggest vulnerability for corporations, for individuals, and for businesses right now. With higher interest rates, the tightness in the credit market is huge. And that's why every company right now is getting their ass handed to them. You know,
Well, no, but okay, you're right. So maybe that's a different way of saying it. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is, regardless of the price of the vehicle, the two things that are important, I think Elon said this on the call, is like, what do I have to put down payment wise, and what's my monthly payment? That's it. I can only afford X dollars of my monthly payment. So if insurance rates go really high, then that means I can afford a cheaper vehicle, or I have to put a larger down payment, because that's really what people care about. Are you having your boomer moment?
I just want to say, before I let Steve cook, I just realized, Steve, that he was texting me, let me cook. I've got stuff to say. Let me cook. I don't know where you found out this terminology from, Steve, because I didn't teach
Because
you.
you
Steve
said
is
it
with it.
today.
Steve is with
I
it.
teach you everything, so I don't know where you
said it
got this from.
today.
But go ahead, cook. Go ahead.
No. That was much earlier. No, but based on what
What?
KRIS was saying, you look at what the St. Louis Fed is saying. They're saying rates are going to come down to 5.1 in 2024, 3.9 in 2025, 2.9 in 2026. You think about the juice on top of the borrowing rate, rates are going to be nowhere near where they used to be. That is not good for Tesla. You start looking at the CME Group FedWatch tool. Why didn't that?
It's on the screen. It's showing.
No, it didn't update.
You have a
I'm
different
going to reshare.
Yeah, just reshare.
So the
Let us
CME
know in the
FedWatch
chat.
tool
Go ahead.
has the probabilities for the different meetings. Into the end of this year, we have a good chance rates are staying the same. We don't get them to start looking at a change until May of 2024, when they have a 30% chance of a rate cut. And then into the end of 2024, they're saying that there's a 27% chance rates are between 4.75 and 5, 26%, 4.5 to 4.75, and stairway down. Rates, depending on what your definition of higher for longer is not going to be anywhere where they used to be. So Tesla is winning. Their margins right now, their profit margin is 11.24% compared to their next competitor, General Motors, at 6%. They need to step on everybody's throats while they can and take another 3 points off their margins and lower costs even further. But that is only the Trojan horse into if FSD actually becomes a monetizable product.
Okay.
I mean, the valuation today is very elevated for the amount of profit that they are doing. Doesn't matter if you make $100,000 or $1 million or $100 million. If you're making $100,000 in each business you pay less for, making that $100,000 is the better one to buy. I mean, it's just the numbers don't make sense today. In the future, they definitely could.
I just want to jump in here. Tesla's not going to just while the rates stay high, Tesla does not just stay idle. another part of the reason why voluntarily compressing these margins to focus on volumes, they do get the benefits of economies of scale. So in other words, they could sell quarter over quarter from this point forward. If they continue to get their costs down, they can sell the vehicles at the same price, but the profit margin can increase on those. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're stepping on the throats of their competitors right now, because what their competitors need in order to grow is they need to scale. And they're preventing them from scaling, which is what they need in order to get their costs, their negative margins up, and maybe even turn a profit. So as long as rates stay high, and keep in mind, they're the only ones that are actually making money on these vehicles. They're going to use that capital to continue to drive costs down. If they can't control the price and can't raise the price, then they're going to continue to do what they can to drive the costs down, so that they can get a higher margin on every vehicle that they sell. So now, what happens in 2 years when rates finally do come down? Do you have any idea how much like pent up demand there is? Every single time Tesla has a price cut, I personally have seen like 7 people buy Teslas because they're like, it's just so cheap.
For sure.
I know people that traded in their vehicle who had just bought one. They were like, it's just so cheap. I can finally afford one. I can finally afford one. This is what I'm hearing. Okay. When we talk about the anecdotals that you're hearing from your friends, this is what I'm hearing. And I know since the prices have started to come down, I know people that said that they would never be able to afford a Tesla. Now they immediately go and they pick one up.
Let's get Matt and then Steve.
So hold on, real quick. The margins for auto only have gone from 28% in Q3 of 2022.
Go on, King.
To 19% this quarter. They keep coming down. That is the margin.
If you lower prices, if they lower prices, yes,
the margins are going to compress even further.
But I'm saying if they lower their prices, they know they know that is an offshoot of that. They know that they're going to be making less money on the vehicles per vehicle right now. But that's why Elon stressed on the call how much they're able to get the costs of the vehicles down. I think he even said it. Now they get the average price of the vehicle cost to them to about $36,000. So everything above 36 grand is now cream. And that's the idea behind the next gen vehicle, which they're developing in Mexico, is they wanted a 50% reduction in input cost. So if it's 36,000, let's just say 36,000, they want a car that costs them 15,000, 17,000 to produce. And then from there, you know, everything I'm talking.
All right, let's get Matt, because that's the same margin discussion.
Yeah, Doug, 37,500. Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
So that's what it costs Tesla.
I think what we are all saying the same thing. I think the only thing that is different is that we're arguing the fact that our valuation of what a market cap should be is very different, right? We all agree that Tesla does a really good job selling cars. We all agree it's a pretty decent product. It has, you know, differing sort of opinions about FSD and everything they like. The real long-term question is, you know, what is the valuation? Because this is what we're all here for as finance junkies. The one point I want to bring in is, this is hard data. You know, I think in Q3 alone, we sold over $300,000 EV cars. And that's pretty impressive, right? I think just 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I think
500,000 for the year.
Yeah, I think we sold like 250,000 just for the year not too long ago. Now we're selling 300,000 in a quarter, which is impressive. What I want to note is 1Q alone this year, the EV market share for Tesla was 60-something%. It is now dipping below 50% for the first time. And so I want to go back to, you know, I'm not saying that Tesla doesn't have a good product, Carlos, and I'm not attacking Tesla. And once I actually started my argument saying they've literally revolutionized the auto industry and brought it literally decades ahead. But what I want to highlight is you really have to think, where is the market share truly going to end up for Tesla in the long term? Is it going to be 10%? Is it going to be 20%? Is it going to be 30%? Because we have yet to get all the different types of brands, cars, models out onto the floor, and they're already dipping below 50%. You have all these different assumptions that many people have had. Kathy, Dan Ives, many of folks saying Tesla's going to have anywhere between 40 to 50% of the market share, and their gross, I don't know if it was gross or net margins were going to be 20 to 30%. And so you start having these sorts of ideas. We've now recognized that in order to get the numbers that they're putting up, and not to say it might not go back up to 20, 30% in the long term, but here we are on a gross profit basis at 17, 18%, on a net basis in the single digits, right? At what point are we actually going to start to see more and more competition where that really gets challenged, where their operating margin is 10, 12%, and their actual net margins are closer to 5%, like most other automakers? And at what is going to be the total market share?
Okay. What I would say is the reason why you're seeing, the reason why you're to justify what you've said. Tesla is now making people aware that EVs exist, right? So when people are now more aware that EVs exist and they're a viable alternative to a gas-powered vehicle, right? This is over the last few years. So when you're saying, well, you know, why are they under 50%? Well, because people are now more aware and less reluctant to buy EVs. But when they look, if they can't afford a Tesla, and they've decided that they want to make the switch to EVs because energy prices have always gone up. You know, if you just do back of the napkin math, you realize that an EV is way less expensive to own. So people say, okay, they run that math. And I know people that have done that. I mean, I could show you text messages of people saying, I'm buying an EV, my next one, because the gas prices are too high. If they can't afford a Tesla, then they'll buy a Kona. Then they'll buy they'll buy whatever's available at their price point. This is why Elon's trying to get those prices down. The real comparison is when they're both available in the same class at the same price point, which a customer is going to choose. That's what we have to see. And what we've seen is in all of the price points that Tesla competes in, they're the number one choice for people. So
Okay,
I don't think that Tesla
like,
losing market share when they might not have a vehicle at the price point that people want yet is a fair way of saying that they're
Steve
losing
said
market.
that $28,000-$30,000. I mean, there's very few people at that point that can't afford a Tesla if they don't really.
There's still a lot of people that can't. I mean, if we just go by the chart, and again, this was 2022. That's still, you still have, you know, 40% of the market that needs it.
Yeah,
to come down
but Carl, don't forget that not everyone has the luxury of having a garage where they can park their own Tesla. Like most people live in cities. Okay, in the city, like if you're in New York City.
9 million people.
Superchargers. What are you talking about? Superchargers. 25 minutes.
Whoa.
20 minutes you'll charge. Superchargers. That's the only way.
No. There are no superchargers in New York City like that. There's just so much densification here. Like, no, it is very hard to get an EV working correctly. Like, dude, no one in New York City can have a Tesla without having like literally run the gamut of difficulty in trying to get that thing charged every day. Yeah.
And to build on what Chris said, so my building has 64, 68 garage spaces underground our building. A lot of buildings in New York have garages. If they don't have a personal garage underneath, you have all the parking garages. We don't have a single EV in our garage. Not a single one has 64, 68 spots. The majority of cars that I see driving around are not electric over here. That's when you go out to Nassau County or Suffolk County, or even other parts of Queens where there are freestanding houses. Charging is an issue in large cities. The way
that's an issue for any EV maker. That's the
point.
So yeah. So now we're back to talking about people buying EVs over ICE vehicles. I mean, we're going to
Steve, not everybody wants an EV.
Can I ask
last thing that, then we got to spend at least 10 minutes on Enphase because people want to hear. Go ahead.
For sure. Enphase is here. No, I'm just kidding. Steve, question for you, a clarification question. What age range are people in your building? Because I would say I'm very surprised at the amount of Teslas and actually just EVs in general that I see in my garage. But we have a little bit more outlets, and we also have some not superchargers, but just charging stations within our garage. And this is 4 or 5 floors of total parking space.
Are you all in New York? Are you, Matt?
I'm in Houston.
Okay, you're in Houston, and you're in New York, Steve?
Yeah, I'm in the city.
You live in Manhattan?
I live in New York City.
But in Manhattan specifically?
Not in Manhattan.
Upper East Side, 81st Street.
Damn, I'm not going to come to your house. He's like, I live somewhere on the East Coast.
But even if you live in, let's say, an apartment building, if the apartment building is to have like chargers in there, it is a really big pain in the ass to go to a supercharger, wait there 30, 40 minutes. And then it's like, God damn, do I really want to keep doing this? You know, whereas a car, it's just like gas it up, you're good to go. You don't have the range anxiety. Still, people right now have a ton of range anxiety, you know? So I would love
having range anxiety. Having range anxiety doesn't mean that it's valid or that it exists. You can have range anxiety, but it doesn't mean that it's actually a thing. You don't own an EV, so
but that's
you don't know this.
what.
Like,
but
you can
that's
have
the
range
point that I'm
anxiety, then
trying
you
to.
go out and you drive. You're like, oh shit, I'm not actually charging this thing as much as I think I need to, or it's going a lot further on charging.
But that's the point, that is a vulnerability. That's what I'm saying. That's one of those things that prevents people from saying, even if the price is low enough, I'm gonna go gung ho on EV. Like if you told me, hey Chris, there's a $25,000 gas car, $25,000 EV, dude, I would love to just get the $25,000 EV. The problem is, doesn't make sense for me where I live and all the conveniences that I need to charge that car.
Most of
when
the
I need to
chargers,
charge it.
okay, most of the we know what's really inconvenient. Gas stations, they're really inconvenient. They're
Not
just
really. I go and I
Dude, there's
fill up
one
at
2
the
minutes from my
house.
I'll
house.
explain
There's one right near my
because when you're there, that's literally the only thing that you're doing. Most of the EV chargers are in places that you normally have to park and go do something else anyway. So you're not going to do anything at a gas station.
No, but it takes you 2 minutes.
Wait,
to
let me
fill up a
finish my
tank
point. Let
at
me
a gas
finish my
station.
point. So most of the EV chargers are in places where there's large parking lots anyway. So if you have to go into, say, go food shopping, right? There's a bunch of EV chargers. You plug your vehicle in, you go in for 20, 25 minutes. When you come out, all of a sudden your car's charged. I mean, what is better than that? That you're already out
I
running.
think you don't like
already
Indian
out doing.
people. You don't like
Yeah.
Indians. That's why you don't like gas stations.
Yo,
Yeah, I
yo,
hate
shout
them.
out to my gas
I hate
station
them.
Shout out to
people,
my
bro.
You
Patels,
got me.
bro.
Shout out to the Patels, my guys.
All
Right.
these Punjabis.
Yo,
All these Punjabs.
Yo,
All right, all right.
I like Indian CEOs. That's all I want. That's the
true.
problem. Tesla needs
Okay,
to
we
get
got to
an
move on to
Indian CEO.
Enphase. So last question for everyone: is Tesla a buy at $215?
I bought today. I bought today.
Okay,
Not-
so it's a buy.
I
So
bought
Carlos is
today.
buying.
Not a lot, but I'm buying. I'll buy 5 shares here, 5 shares
Okay.
there, 5 shares here. You know what I mean? And keep going down. If we get below 200, which it's possible. And the other thing to keep in mind about this quarter is they were guided to have less production and less revenue this year for this quarter. They guided for that. They shut down the factories for 2 weeks to make improvements so that they can continue to get costs down. I don't understand why this is never factored in. In Q2,
But no, you have to blame retail investors. That's the majority of the
Hold
stock.
on.
These
In
guys don't fucking
Q2
listen to what Tesla's
Q2
saying. They
in
sold it all.
of 2022, the China factory was forced to shut down for 2 weeks. That cost them 100,000 vehicles that quarter. And for some reason, when the quarter came, nobody took that into account. So we were told ahead of time, we're shutting down our factories. We have to do some improvements so that, first of all, they can continue to tool for Cybertruck, and so that we can make further cost reductions down the line. Then this quarter is disappointing, and people go, "Oh my God, Tesla's."
This is the problem with the volatility. When they say they're going to do bad, retail doesn't believe them.
But this is one of the reasons why I don't take this company at any one particular quarter, one way or the other. We were told, just like Enphase, we were told that guidance was going to be less for this quarter. When it happens, you have to remember that the management told you this was going to happen. If the stock is disproportionately sold off, that's fine. I will continue to buy some, because with these two companies in particular, I'm looking at, a 5-year time horizon, say from, 2 to 3 or 4 years from now is around when I would be looking to hit my.
All right, so let's move on. Let's move on to Enphase. Carlos, can you stay for
No,
another like
hold
10
on.
minutes?
Let,
Yeah, I can
let
stay.
us answer that also if it's a buy.
No, Steve, the chat, we got to move on to. We spent an hour 16 on Tesla. We got to move on. But you can factor in your whatever you're going to say into the Enphase discussion.
I mean, how long does it take you to say no, Steve? Just say no and move
Well,
on.
no.
I mean, just be like, no.
Think
Fuck
about it
Tesla.
like this. There's other opportunities in the market, and a big thing that could inhibit people from investing in Tesla is that you have other companies such as Amazon that are going to.
Okay, Steve, we're not going to get to Amazon. We're not going to get to Amazon. So Enphase, below $100. I want to give a shout out to someone on this podcast that I think deserves a little bit of a shout out. KRIS Patel, when it was at 140 or 190, he said 180. When it got, or he said 160. When it got to 160, he said 150. Got to 150, he said 130. Got to 130, he said, you know what? I like under 100. And now it is under 100. So KRIS is going to go first on this. KRIS, are you buying even one share of Enphase under 100?
Fuck no. Fuck
Wow. Okay.
Let me tell you something. KRIS will never buy Enphase. KRIS will never.
No, I'll buy it.
principle.
I'll buy it.
What's the
Once
new
it's
price
low
target?
enough.
What's the new one?
You
Since you're
will
the
never.
genie, what's the number?
You said when it was 300, you're like 150 is my price target. 150 came. He's like, no, 120 is my price target. 120. You just love.
But he's been right. He's been right.
He just loves shitting on it on the way down. You'll never buy Enphase.
So just like how I explained last time, until the credit market improves, there's no reason to be buying overvalued companies that make no sense right now. Yes, there will be a point where Enphase makes sense as an investment. Maybe that'll come when interest rates get back to some normalcy, but right now is not that time. Also, the valuation for Enphase is still stretched by any measure, and there are other opportunities in the market. Hell, you can make a better return on just treasuries right now. So a lot of companies, I would say right now, getting over that hurdle of that, that PE multiple compression that should naturally happen hasn't happened yet. And Enphase right now is getting its butt handed to it. And my new price target, if I had to put one, would be $50.
Oh,
So
Okay, now you're
Wait,
just going.
why, Chris?
Now
Are
you're
you
the
throwing
Gordon
that? Hold on,
Johnson
Chris. Are you
thing.
throwing that number out of your ass, or how do you get to 50? You just
no, because the revenues
What
are
would the
going to go
market cap
down.
be at 50? What would the market cap be at 50?
yeah, I was
get
thinking
like,
it's like 8.
7 billion,
7,
8
8.
billion?
70. Okay, so Palantir is worth more than Palantir would be worth more than Enphase. Okay,
So,
Yeah.
we reached peak.
Yeah.
We reached peak insanity on finance.
Wait,
No.
hold on. That's not insanity. I'm not
No,
going to get
that's-
into it, but that's
no,
not
whoa,
insanity.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
I'll take
No.
you on.
So-
I mean, I'll take you. I'm already fighting.
Look,
He's
man, you
throwing,
asked me
I'm
what's the
cooking.
catalyst for Palantir 7 months ago. I said AI, and your response was solar panels. It looks like AI is way more important than solar panels.
I didn't
At
say
least,
what are
at
you
least
talking
so far.
about. You have a way
least
of
so far.
frame. You have a way of being
Amit,
so
share my
biased in the way that you frame arguments.
No,
Is
that was the
how you
discussion.
made
You're
it?
like AI versus solar panels. I said AI. You said solar panels. AI is
No,
winning.
I did not. That it wasn't. It wasn't a.
Maybe it was
clear
VITALY. It was
conversation.
one of you guys. Go
Maybe.
ahead.
Don't think
So
so.
I'm bullish on Enphase long term. I think it's the same story as Tesla. It's going down further. This is from the EIA, their newest energy report. Solar right here is going to exponentially increase over the next 3 decades. There's a huge runway for growth. I was bullish on Enphase while rates started to increase because I didn't think rates were going to get here. Now, as rates increased, it has destroyed the bull case for Enphase. And if rates are higher for longer, or if Powell decides to tick up because he just took shots at Janet Yellen saying that he believes that we're going in the wrong direction with fiscal policy, Enphase could be in for more hurt. This could continue going down. And until rates come down and solar becomes more affordable, especially since people are not paying cash for it, Enphase, SolarEdge, and these other companies are going to have a lot of trouble. There's other opportunities than this now, but it could get to a point where it makes a lot of sense to buy it and hold it for the next 10, 15 years.
You know, I want to second that, Steve. I think where people may have been very enthusiastic about installing their own residential solar panels, I think as costs continue to come down and we drive away from fossil fuels, eventually we'll get to a point where energy prices continue to decrease over time. I don't think that time is today. I think that there's still some volatility to be had, but I think that we are getting to a place where, just a few years ago, it was, starting to get very profitable to be in solar. Now it's getting to a place where competition is kind of heating up to a point where people are going to have to use their ingenuity and efficiencies to be able to make things get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper over time. So with that, I think, why would somebody come out of pocket to be able to install residential solar panels if they could just get them through residential through Berkshire Hathaway Energy or Tesla or NextEra Energy or any of these other companies that are going to set these things up at scale? I just don't see the reasoning. And in this price environment, I agree with you. It's going to be very difficult for people to kind of come out of pocket and spend 30 to 40 grand to be able to save 250 to $300 a month. I think it's very tough.
If it's your primary resident, or if it's your primary resident residency where you plan on living there for, say, 7 to 10 years, it absolutely makes sense, because that money that you're paying for the system itself, yes, you're saving $250 a month, but there's also an added value to your property as a result of it. So my panels cost me $26,000, and I'm basically offsetting my energy costs, but I'm getting that money back when I sell the home. Like that money that I paid is going to be rolled into the future price of the home. So I'm basically getting paid twice.
You say that, Carlos, but I was looking at rental and investment properties in New Jersey. I didn't give a flying shit whether or not it had solar panels or not.
So
okay, but
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying.
No,
that's my perspective.
I'm just saying that I know that my house would come in. I had somebody come in and look at my house because I've got the solar panels and the EV chargers. There's a premium that I can attach to the house because I've already paid and installed it. In the same way that if you upgrade your kitchen, People are going to pay you for that upgrade. That's why you do it. You do an upgrade because you're able to capture the equity increase in the home for that. So,
can I ask a silly question? Take this as you wish. Do you utilize a lot more cloud storage, or do you store a lot of your data on your personal computer?
What do you mean, like personally? I have a massive, I have a RAID because I work in video. I can't store my media on the cloud. The data, my issue is not data, is not the amount of data, it's bandwidth. I need high bandwidth. So I have a very fast, like local RAID.
The reason I ask is I think a lot of people nowadays are utilizing cloud more than they even recognize. And the reason being is because previously you used to have to do something like buy a massive hard drive for 200 gigabytes or 500 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And it was expensive. You used to have to pay over $1 per gigabyte. Now it's super cheap, but now it's easier for people to just buy cloud. And I think it's going to end up being the same exact model that people,
what do you mean?
Well, instead of buying and installing their own solar panels, it's going to get so cheap to use cloud or subscription services that you're going to go back to just using the normal grid.
And don't forget that solar makes a lot of sense if you have the money to make it make sense. It goes back to the
But the cost out of pocket is zero, Steve. What are you talking about? I didn't pay anything. I paid nothing. I paid my monthly bill.
How are you paying nothing for if the cost of out of pocket is zero, which I've heard VITALY say before. I don't know if I've heard you say that before.
It really was zero.
So you didn't take a dime out of your pocket to put
not
solar
a dime
or battery pack?
I did not take a dime out of my pocket. I signed that I had. Okay, what I was doing was instead of what replaced my energy bill was repaying back the loan for the solar. But the repayment for the loan, number one, was cheaper than what I was paying for my energy costs. And number two, I wasn't susceptible to the spikes. And that's what really did it for me. I would get these massive bills in August when my energy usage was high. And I get a $1,500 bill one month. I got sick of having that. So when I switched over to solar, I was paying, say, $200, $220 a month, whatever it was for the year. And that bill never changed. As long as the panels produced enough energy to cover my costs and give me enough in the bank to protect me for the wintertime when production was less, I still netted out at basically a $0 energy bill, and I was paying off the loan every month. Now, granted, I had a 4% loan or 5% loan at the time, so it would be different. But we have talked to so many installers. If you guys follow us on Freelancer Finance, we have talked to so many installers all over the country. And the last one that we did was really good. We talked to this guy in Australia. People are still installing the shit out of solar for that very reason. It evens out the energy bill. It evens out your energy bill. And over the long term, later on, you can always go and refinance it. But there's an equity appreciation on your home. You are, and the protection that you get from being off the grid if you do have power outages. If you have an EV, it makes even more sense. There's a lot of reasons to get solar, no matter what.
I love the idea of having the battery pack, and I do think it's a value add. When I drive around the different towns on Long Island or up in Westchester, I'm not seeing solar a lot.
You know what that is? Because even in my neighborhood, a lot of times, because people see solar panels as an eyesore, they will not install them on the sides of the roofs that face the street. So if you're driving around, you might not necessarily see them.
You have to make sure your house is facing a certain way. You have to make sure you have enough room.
I mean,
let me show you guys the future.
You would want it to be facing south, right? That's the side where you get the most. But if you don't have it, you could still put panels up.
SunPower's got a nice array for their solar farms.
Let me show you guys the future of Enphase, okay? This is traditionally what tends to happen with solar. You usually have this bout of, oh my God, euphoria, solar energy price is high. Let's everyone buy solar. And then it drops off and it's like, whatever. The technology is kind of like not there. And then, hey, solar energy price is high again. And then it drops back down again. And then again in 2001, oh my God, solar. And then everyone is back down again. All right. This business is fucked because of competition among not just other microinverters, because look, Enphase makes microinverters, but so do like all these other Chinese companies. They all make microinverters. Hold on. So not only are you competing against cheaper manufacturing with other companies that make microinverters, then there's string inverters, then there's power optimizers. There's a bunch of companies that make those on top of it. So not only are you competing against other microinverters right there. So you don't have any uniqueness in the technology, no moat. You now also are competing against competing technology at the same time. This is the same problem that happened with solar panels. When solar panels came out, the profit margins when they initially came out, they were great. People were making money. Then comes in the competition, competes away all the profits, and boom, now no one gives a shit if you install a Chinese solar panel up there or one that's made in America. And this is exactly what's going to happen to Enphase, where the microinverter itself is going to get commoditized to death, in which case people are going to keep competing, lowering prices until all the profits are going to be competed away from Enphase. And then the price of the stock will just keep going down and down. That's what I
Chris,
think.
what
Can
happens
we?
if
I just want to. I want to
Southern
just directly.
company
I want to
continues
just directly
build
address that.
nuclear plants, and the cost of energy from the utility companies continues to go down because nuclear is extremely cheap to produce energy.
Nuclear is extremely cheap, and we should adopt more of it. But there is a stigma attached to it in this country that until that changes, it's not going to be adopted. Meanwhile, China's building these nuclear plants, or even Japan. So that's more of a problem of sentiment. But I just want to address this. Can you share my screen a minute? Because Chris, like, look, you're a smart guy, but you are absolutely 100% incorrect, wrong on Enphase. Okay, you keep saying that people don't care what solar panels they install on the roof. Enphase doesn't make solar panels. The solar panels are the cheapest commodity. Wait, I'm going to finish. this point. They will continue to go down in price, and they'll continue to have higher wattages, and they'll continue to go down. That's not where people make money, is on the solar panels. The manufacturers do, but nobody's making money on the panels. Okay, this is Enphase themselves. We don't sell to a homeowner. That's where we rely on our partners, installers. Enphase's customer are the installers, bro. It is not the homeowner. It is the businesses that come up around a certain product or company to put these and install these on people's roofs. It is that is their network. That's the moat. It's installers that have 20, 30, 40, 40 years collective experience that are installing these things on people's roofs. That is their moat. And we've talked to so many of these installers. Do you know how hard it is to get someone to switch their entire business when you have inventory and you have it, when you always it's like you have backlog, you have orders coming in, you have orders that you're installing, and you have future sales. It's very hard to just switch that over to a different company because you're getting a $10 cheaper inverter, especially when you have to service these things. Enphase's moat is the installers and a 25-year warranty on all of the products that they install. By and large, across all the installers we've spoken to, they've all said the same thing. It's very hard to get me to switch away from Enphase when they make such high quality products and they serve it and they warranty them for so long. That is why it's so difficult to capture market share from Enphase. So your solar optimizers, yes, there are some people that the customer doesn't even understand the difference between an optimizer, a string inverter or an inverter. They don't understand that. It's the installers. And so when you keep saying these things, it's like, it's just wrong. You know better. And I just have to.
Okay. There's a couple of things. I'm not saying that solar panels, like they sell solar panels. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the same thing that happened with competition with solar panels is exactly what's going to happen with whatever the microinverter technology is that gets that energy to the house. And at the same time, yes, I am in agreement with you that a lot of installers prefer Enphase right now. But if you're telling me that that's always going to be the case, I have to disagree with you, because at the end of the day, they make money on the spread between how much they get those inverters for versus how much they end up charging the person to install them. So that means that if there's a technology that comes out cheaper and at a better price point with the same comparable use case, they will switch, because that means that they can make more money. Enphase right now is the most expensive option, and on top of it, you're not even calculating all the liabilities that go into selling these microinverters for the next 25 years. I read a Bear report on that. One of the things that I have to be very cautious on is all the future liabilities that this company is taking on by constantly saying, oh, look at the sales, look at the sales. Okay, what are you doing? Are you putting any money to the side right now to take care of those microinverters that go bad over the next 25 years? That seems like a very big vulnerability.
By and large, okay, two points. Okay, number one, by and large, the microinverters, they don't fail. There's a very, very low failure rate of these microinverters. There's no moving parts on them, right? So you've already got that. They have worked on the technology so that it's incredibly efficient and they don't fail. Just by and large, they don't fail. And this is having spoken to probably 10 installers across the US and all over the world. They don't fail. And when they do fail, Enphase is on the phone with you immediately, and they're out shipping it away. I had one inverter go down within 2 days. They fixed it, and I've never had an issue since then. So
Carlos, I have a
this
question
idea
for
that
you.
like they have to put money aside to fix the 0.01, I think the failure rate for Enphase is like less than 1%, across the millions of inverters that they're selling per year. It's nominal on comparison to SolarEdge, which has massive failure. That's one of the reasons why a lot of companies that started installing SolarEdge because it was the cheaper option switched to Enphase, because they were rolling so many trucks to do service calls that like, this is not, I can't do this. I can't be sitting here all day RMAing shit and then having to reschedule with customers when I didn't have that in my calendar for the month. Now I'm doing nothing but service visits. So it's a less of an issue than you're making it seem to be.
So I have a question. If you were going to build a house from the ground up, why wouldn't you put a Tesla roof on rather than solar panels?
I actually,
Or
that's part of
why
my
wouldn't you do a
my
Tesla
bear
roof
case.
instead of solar
Yes, my
panels?
bear case for Enphase would be Tesla, to be honest, because Tesla is so focused on growing the vehicle division, as they should be, that they haven't really put the priority. And also just some of it's supply constraint, like just having the amount of batteries available, like raw materials. That would be a bear case. I think if Tesla were to really ramp up their solar division, like really make that a priority, like once they feel like for example, if rates weren't what they were and they didn't have to do everything they needed to do, I think that they would be pushing solar a lot more. And actually, in a conversation with Chris, he had a great idea. He's like, what if Tesla did a bundle option? Get an EV, buy solar on your roof, one price, right? For a low price of this per month. So now you have the complete ecosystem. That's something that would worry me as an Enphase investor. What happens when Tesla does that? Because there is a certain percentage. I think they said it was like 20 to 30% of EV customers buy solar or are interested in getting solar. So if Tesla's got 5 million vehicles on the road, you do the math on that. That's a lot of sales that they would steal from Enphase. So, but as of now, Enphase is still the #1 preferred installer by installers, and Tesla is not making that push. But me, you're right. If I were to build a new home from scratch, I would probably go and get a solar roof.
Can I ask a question? How much, Carlos, is the sales of Enphase towards commercial, and how much is it residential?
It's mostly residential. And that is a question that I did ask the installers. Like, why is that? Because SolarEdge seems to be eating their lunch when it comes to commercial. And actually, the last guy gave us some really good information on that. It has more to do, it's not even about pricing, because pricing, they're really, the premium for Enphase is not as much as you would think, especially once you start getting into bigger and bigger systems. That starts to get shrink even less, but it's very small. Like the difference is not, it's not even 10% in terms of what you'd be paying, right? He told me that it had more to do with just technically the way that Enphase systems are set up. Once you get above 100 kilowatts, it's about routing all that power. So if you've got a massive facility that's got a 200 kilowatt system, the problem that they have with the Enphase system specifically is how do you manage all that power? So for example, when the grid doesn't need the power, right? How does the system control where all of that power gets routed so you don't overload the grid? That's what it really comes down to. And being able to create, I forgot the device that he was talking about that Enphase needs to create that would basically allow them to throttle the system down so it's not overproducing and risk overloading the grid. That's how it was explained to me.
Maybe talking about a capacitor, basically like an energy storage system.
Exactly.
It flows to, and then the grid will take it as it needs it,
as it
rather
needs,
than
right? Because that's the problem that he was having when they installed them, that they were too large. And that's another reason why they were saying batteries were good for that, because then you can reroute that extra power to the batteries. For example, on the days when there's no one at the factory, like on a Saturday or Sunday when there's no one there consuming power from the solar panels, these things are producing almost too much energy.
I have a clarification for Chris with respect to his $50 price target. Is that just something that you're saying is for?
He's like, why are you so bullish?
Why not zero, Chris? No.
Why are you so bullish? So you buying calls?
I actually looked at Enphase a couple months ago, and I actually thought that, if I remember correctly, it was like at a price to earnings, I think at the time.
The reason why I'm saying no, the reason why I'm looking at that, no, the price to earnings for Enphase is 20 right now.
Yeah,
Actually, not
at the time you were looking.
At the time I was looking, it was around 20 to 22, and
it's 29 right now. The PE is 29.
So I didn't hate it. The thought and what I did, Chris, I don't think I looked at the trailing 12 month. I think I just looked at the last 2 quarters and I multiplied it by 2. So depending on how well the last 2 quarters did, I kind of just annualized it from that. And that's kind of how I got a PE of 20 to 22 or something like that. The thought is you've seen from a company that's been so explosive in year-over-year growth, you saw that flat line for the past 3 quarters. And that was my fear associated with just the macroeconomic environment at the moment. And my thought to the folks that were on that call, I think I had like 600, 700 views of that, were specifically, I don't think this is a bad company to invest in, but I think you need to wait a couple quarters for this to play out, for it to truly get to a place where you can be certain that they go back into that growth trajectory before. And then I also talked a little bit about how I think, honestly, commercial is going to outweigh residential in the long term. But I think that the thing that I really want to look for is I would keep an eye on the ball. And if you don't have a position and you're bullish about the company long term, this could be an opportunity. But I still think that I would wait a quarter or two, specifically now that we're almost done with 3Q and those results are going to be out, I think, next week. Mm-hmm. I think that folks need to wait for that, because there might be another shoe or foot that drops. And then second, I think that they need to honestly wait until you get a quarter or so after we start getting some rate cuts, because I don't think people are going to be out rushing to the door to go get some solar panels installed until they get a better price environment or lending rates than we have today. And that was kind of my fear. I don't think that this company is bad. I think the valuation for where it's at today and what I looked at for the first 2 quarters was reasonable. But my fear is very quickly that valuation, like KRIS said, can get expensive very quick if things start going in the opposite direction. Because if you start to have anemic growth, no longer is it worth a PE of 20, it's worth more of a PE of 15. But the problem then it gets, and that might be something to kind of consider. Something like this something that should be valued kind of like how we value our oil companies. In times of good times with oil companies, you value them at a price to earnings of 8 to 10. And same things with a lot of automakers. You price them at 8 to 10. And when they're really, really bad times, you price them at price to earnings of, say, 20 or 30, because for a fact that the price to, the valuations are eventually going to grow again. And that I don't know. I haven't seen enough cycles in the solar market to really say these are also cyclical sort of companies. But from what I see, there's ebbs and flows. And I think a lot of it has to do with just price environment, also the interest rate environment, oil price environment, that all play a help or a headwind or a tailwind associated with this market. But that I just wanted to let you know that, like, I'm not against you. And especially now at a price of 100, I think I valued it when it was at 120 or 130. That's why I was getting the price to earnings of about 20 to 22. For now, it's probably below 20, obviously, but who knows what third quarter is going to bring. And that's my fear, is that really these things have a delayed effect. What we're probably seeing is the impact of what it took the interest rates from 6 months ago or 7 months ago, not from last month or the month before. Because you have to think, people have to plan. And I don't know how long it took you, Carlos. Did it take a couple quarters for you to get your solar? Was it something that was up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I had got 3 different quotes. Had the guys come to the house. You have to get. For me, it's more about when you ask for it. But basically, they're going to ask you for your last 3 months of your bills. So I wanted to wait for the summertime, so I had my highest usage for the year. So I waited till August, around there, when I had June, July, August. And I had my real high usage months. And then from August, I would say, once I decided on a company, within 2 weeks they were here, and it was fine.
The biggest vulnerability that they have is their operating income is going to get chopped in half. Like the revenue, they've already told us, guided. We have lower revenue coming up. Their costs are all still fixed costs. So at this point, it's almost a given that whatever PE people are looking back on the trailing side make absolutely no sense, which means forward, when you look at forward basis, if you're looking at 80 million in operating income, that's what, like 240. It's way still overvalued. And that's not net income, it's operating income. Net income is going to even be lower. So this is the thing. All the valuation that you can do, this is a classic value trap. That's why this is going to 50. Maybe it levels off at 75 or something, but it's going down,
Can we?
I see.
This one question. I guess we didn't answer this. Amit, I have a question. No one asked why is Enphase going down so much today?
Tesla.
Anyone want to talk about Solar Edge?
That's-
'Cause
No.
that's-
I'll explain because Solar Edge right now, they had 900 million in estimates in terms of sales. They ended up coming in, I think, way below that. And so this is the same thing that happens when you have an industry where you have industry adjacent companies. People are automatically going to be like, wait a second, there is a demand drop off in solar, which means that demand drop off will probably likely translate to
all the other
Enphase as well.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens is the sector takes a hit. We saw the same thing happen today with
Banks,
AT&T and
so that happens
Verizon.
with banks at some point. Yeah,
Right.
or AT&T,
Yeah.
Verizon.
AT&T had a phenomenal quarter, so they went up because they did a lot less in CapEx. Right now, Verizon is saying the same thing. We're cutting back on CapEx. Verizon was up 2% today, but when they report, they're going to have the same exact tailwinds that AT&T did going forward, if not probably more. And so me and Steve, we're fucking Verizon people, baby. Let's go.
Dude,
Verizon, that's where we
AT&T
want to be.
article's coming out tomorrow. Did you look at AT&T's earnings today, Chris?
Not yet.
Dude,
man.
you're gonna
They
love
beat
it.
today. Yeah, they beat today. I
They
got
raised
an alert.
their
I
guidance
got an
on free
alert.
cash
I woke up today. I got an alert and I was like, AT&T. All right.
Wait, is AT&T up?
AT&T's
They're
a
in the
plus.
dividend. They're in the dividend portfolio. Like, yeah, just keep bringing money.
Oh, they're
out.
up 6% today. They're up
They're
90%.
Why
One
right
thing.
now?
One thing I just want to say because I was listening to Matt Money speak. I'd like to make this like moving forward when we say, is this company investable today? We always end up talking like Steve started talking about, well, there's opportunity cost. You could be investing in Amazon and whatnot. I think the better question to ask is if you are already holding a position, should you add to the position? I think that's a way of being able to ask that question in a way that we get out of the comparing to other
Yeah, I
companies
like that.
or opportunity cost. If you're holding, like for me, I'm holding, would I add to it? Yes, I would add. I'm not going to back up the truck, but I'm going
Carlos,
to
is
add
your
position
price
on
per
that.
share above where it is now, or are you profitable on it?
I'm profitable on some lots and other. Probably overall, I am down because I bought a bunch of sub 100. I mean, you're talking in the 2020s, but I ended up selling some of that out when I wanted to buy a car. So I'm rebuilding that position. It's still a pretty big position, but I'm still building it back up. But this goes to Matt's money thing about things being cyclical. It's like, do I think that in a few years from now that this one particular quarter is going to matter? No. And so I look at this as a buying opportunity. I still only see people buying more EVs, buying more solar on their homes. Maybe they're going to wait and look for a better entry point into it, but it's on people's radar a lot more now than it was even a few years ago. And so even if we're not seeing the adoption, like people aren't running out and buying it now, they're still looking at it and looking to do it in a way that makes sense for them. So it's more about this pent up demand. And the longer that we stay in this high rate environment, the more that the costs of these things come down. I think the more pent up demand that we have. And so if and when rates even drop a point or two, I do think we are going to see we'll start to see that in an increase in installs, even if it's just a FOMO effect, like, oh my God, let me get this now before the rates go back up, right? That kind of thing. Like people were rushing to refinance their homes in 2020, right, when rates were down. It's that kind of thing. So I think long term, we're going to be fine.
I just think right now, Verizon is one of the most underappreciated companies.
He just did the opportunity cost thing.
Okay,
opportunity.
Verizon is his new Disney. Did you go through girlfriends like this?
Disney's gonna do well too, but Verizon right now.
Stocks like he's,
No.
KRIS has
Verizon,
his girl. He's like Leonardo DiCaprio.
It's not my fault when fucking things go on sale. I'm a buyer. Okay.
He's like,
when
did you
things
see
go on
her?
sale,
Did you see her?
All right. So right now, Verizon is trading. Their fucking PE is lower than their dividend right now. They're cutting back on CapEx, and today Crown Castle came down, was down 5% today. Crown Castle provides cellular rental services for Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and whatever, right? All these companies. They guided for lower revenue from slowing organic growth. What does that mean? That means AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, they're doing CapEx on their 5G plans. They spent a shit ton of money in 5G spending over the last 3 years. All that spending now is going to go down, down, and down. And what is Verizon going to do? It's going to have one of the biggest moats because these things are just like a giant monopoly where there can't be really too much competition. They're going to be able to extract so much value from home 5G internet. It's going to boost up their operating income while at the same time they're trading at fucking 13-year lows, Steven?
Chris, you and I need to do a dedicated episode on Verizon and AT&T because most
We
people
can do it on Finance Junkies. We can do it here.
most people misunderstand Verizon and AT&T, and they look at their 100 billion plus of debt.
Yeah, which is all
without looking
fixed.
at the debt maturity profile, and without factoring in how much cash they have on hand, when the debt matures, and how much free cash flow they are retaining, not generating, retaining after the dividend is paid on a quarterly basis, and work backwards on a 5-year basis to see if the debt is manageable. I go through this meticulously in the AT&T article that's coming out tomorrow. Both are so undervalued right here because people don't understand how debt works. People don't understand how to read a balance sheet, and people just look for the shiny new thing with headlines.
So
And
you would buy
Verizon
Verizon over Tesla right now,
and I would buy Verizon over Tesla, yes.
and Enphase. Verizon over Tesla and Enphase.
I would buy Verizon over both today.
Okay. All right, let me do some super chats. Then we got to get out of here. This was a good
Yeah,
2-hour episode. BJ Ames, thank you for $5. Chris Cahodes, thank you for $5. Smash the like button. Please subscribe. Matt and Steve's Twitter is in the description. Steve, amazing articles on Seeking Gal for pretty much every Friday. And Matt,
I'm just a
amazing.
guy.
He's just a guy who understands stocks and has
Matt to zero, everybody.
Matt, are we
Zero.
still doing cash flow chronicles today? What's up? You want to join us, Steven? We can go over the Verizon bull case.
There
You
go.
know,
After
if
we
you're
have to talk
free.
about SLG too, by the way.
yeah, SLG as well. Yeah,
Steve, do you have the energy after 2 hours to do another?
Yeah,
podcast?
I need
I
20
could do
minutes, but yes.
yeah. We'll do it at
You got a
10.
whole hour. Yeah, you got a whole
You got an
hour.
hour and some change. So we'll
10,
send you the
I'm
invite.
good. I'm there.
So let me
Everyone, so yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, Chris. You pitch it. I'll send it. Put in the link on the chat. Go
No,
ahead.
I was saying, join us, Matt Money's channel. We're doing a deep dive into SLG's earnings today, and the same thing with probably Verizon. You know, those two companies are just phenomenally in a really good place right now. So, you know, if you guys want you want to take a look, subscribe to the Matt Money channel real quick. That's where we're doing the
Yeah, it's in the
show
chat. There's
called Cash Flow Chronicles.
There's 450 people here. If you guys haven't heard of the podcast, I would highly recommend. The party doesn't have to end at 8:52 p.m. tonight. It will begin again in an hour, and Steve will be joining them. Check out that podcast. It's growing every day. It's super cool, and Chris and Matt do it, I think, 3-4 times a week, late at night. So make sure you go to that. That's in the description. Altec $10 super chat. I'm here to support my boy Carlos. I think Carlos, you held your own. You stood up.
Carlos.
Sorry, Carlos. You did a good
having
job,
just
man. You did a
woke
good
up.
job.
Great job.
I woke up. I didn't even realize the two of you were going to be on. But when I saw Bear Case and then I saw Bold, I got like Steve and Matt. I was like, all right, can you smell what I'm cooking?
Were you listening to my intro?
Can you smell?
Were you listening
Carlos,
to the
are
intro
you
of the
an
pod?
NVIDIA or AMD guy?
No, maybe it's better I didn't listen to the pod. It would probably made me
Yeah,
angry.
because I was hyping up the intro. I was getting ready to like literally.
Oh, you were doing your
get
Bruce
on
Pepper?
Tesla,
Nice,
and I
nice.
know you heard it while you were brushing your teeth, and then you get.
Yeah. No, I didn't even brush my teeth today. I was like, fuck it.
And then Mr. Seymour Duck, $5. Chris is right. Legacy companies have a price of sales less than 1x. Tesla's at 8x. The low margins for legacy is personal.
So real quick, but before we go, can you put up the result of the poll?
Oh yeah, what did I say on the poll? So I said on the poll, I asked everybody, is Tesla just an auto company? We got 430 votes. 36% said yes. 64% said no.
There you go. The people have spoken.
All right.
How do you have to show me how to do a poll, because when I was filling in for you and I was hosting, I couldn't figure out how to do that the other day. You got to show me how to do that.
The poll,
You
yeah.
did
I'll show you.
Okay. So, anyway, all right. So I'm gonna go get back to doing what I was gonna do before I got on the podcast.
All right, I'll see you guys.
Carlos,
guys
buy
later.
some Verizon. Join
Yeah, that's
us.
exactly
Join
right.
the
I'm gonna
dark
go-
side.
I'm gonna go DCA into some Verizon.
There you go.
Join the dark side in Verizon. That's
I'm
what
curious.
you
I haven't looked at Verizon. I sold it at 58 or 59
Email me
a
the
couple
link.
years
I
ago,
gotta
so I'm
go.
curious.
All
All
right,
right, you
Yeah.
guys rock.
I'm gonna go DCA into something. I'll see you later.
Later.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining. This is a good episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comments of it. I think this was fun. Long 2-hour episode. This is cool because on these types of nights, it's like, obviously when something happens in the market and like everyone's interested about it, I think it's good if like we have a real big podcast on that day, because that's when people are interested. That's when people care. That's when people are like looking at the portfolio, like, holy crap, like what's going on? And I think that's the day where like you try to bring in some of the experts or perceived experts and try to get some analysis. So this was fun. We'll do more in the future. Tomorrow, this is the last episode of the week. We'll be back on Sunday. And Yeah, this is why we do the show. I know we were talking last night about, the times it's tough to match everyone up, but that's the reason why we do it for moments like this. I mean, we have like 500 people here all bonding over the fact that shit is red, right? And it's like sometimes, and again, the DMs and the messages we get almost every day are just like, yo, the reason I like this podcast is because I have a group of people to talk to when I can bond with around my portfolio, especially when shit goes south. So that's why it's super fun. MGR, we will talk about SoFi on Sunday. We can bring that up. They have earnings coming up soon, and we'll keep going from there. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday. Have a great, great weekend. I do have to go to the gym, as Kelly says in the chat. I've delayed my gym experience, and now I got to go run 7 miles for the next. I did 73 minutes on 7 miles, which is about 10 minutes and 5 seconds a mile 2 days ago. So I'm trying to beat 73 minutes for 70 miles and try to get to 70 minutes and then eventually 90 minutes. That's my record. All right. Thank you, everybody. Subscribe, like. We will see you on Sunday. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.